Hello, I'm W.P. Suazo, and I will talk to you now about drawing supply and demand. Taking an economics class, probably your teacher will want you to draw a supply and demand scenario, a market scenario. Certainly, the teacher himself will give some examples on the board. What we have here is the market for potato chips. So, we have our supply curve. Beginning at its choke price, so what this means is no potato chips are for free. Maybe potato chips, the cheapest potato chips begin at $1 a bag, and as we pay more, the industry supplies more bags of potato chips. Here's our demand for potato chips. What would it get to, what price would choke off all demand for potato chips? It's up here, it's unlabeled. Maybe $9, $10 for a bag of potato chips would get everyone to eat pretzels or cheese curls or something other than potato chips for the week. Here's our equilibrium right here in the middle at $3. 5 truckloads are delivered per week, and a busy supermarket sells 5 truckloads at $3 a bag. All right, so what events could happen to the potato chip market? Well, the first one I'll propose is dip sale. What happens if chip dip is on sale, potato chip dip? If potato chip dip is on sale, that will make potato chips themselves more attractive. Now, ultimately, this event will play out into all corners of society, but the impact will first be felt by the demanders of potato chips. So what we have here is we have demand increasing, moving to the northeast, so that's demand prime. That's what that apostrophe is described as. So, if people want more potato chips, industry will make more so long as we are willing to pay more. So what we have now is a new equilibrium. So now we have, say, 7 truckloads of potato chips for a big supermarket, but now we're paying $4 a bag. Potato chip dip being discounted causes people to demand potato chips more. They want more, they'll pay more. And in a market economy, they want more, they will get more. What we have here, we have demand surging, so we have more demand. Now, oftentimes I'll have students say, well, to meet this higher demand, industry will have a greater supply of potato chips, and that's not how it is described. What we have here is we have one supply curve. As you see, we have 2 demand curves, but we have one supply curve here. So what's happening is demand is pushing up along the one in the same supply curve. So for supply, we have the same supply. We have more quantity supplied, which is equal to quantity demanded. All right, so this is how our first event plays out. Let me get rid of the old demand curve, and here's our new equilibrium. So now we have a surge in popularity for potato chips, and they're selling at $4 a bag. What happens in the U.S. if we have a potato blight? Some kind of disease begins to kill the potatoes in the field. So if we have a potato blight, how would that affect our market for potato chips? Now, I say this, a potato blight would eventually be widespread or be known by all corners of society, but whom is impacted first? Students are quick to say, yes, this would be bad news at first for suppliers, and it would make supply go down. If we drop the supply curve, look at the message we're sending. If supply curve drops down and moves to the right, we're saying there's more potato chips available and at a lesser price, and that's not what we mean to say. If there's going to be less supply means less inventory, and if you're able to obtain some units, you can expect to pay more. So less supply is graphed going to the left. Remember, if this is 0 and infinity is this way, less demand or supply is a shift to the left. So we have the supply curve moving back to the left, and now let's say a big busy supermarket will get 4 trucks of potato chips, and now they cost $5 a bag. What happens to demand? Well, initially maybe people won't know what a potato blight will do to the food market. Maybe they think that somehow this could be worked around, or maybe potatoes can be brought in from elsewhere, or maybe there could be a substitute. Heck, hamburgers are being made out of different things every day. So we'll have a same demand. One and the same. As you see, demand retreats by shifting along a same demand curve. So we'll have less quantity demanded as we'll have less quantity supplied. But we'll have more than just a quantity change for supply. We'll have a lesser supply, a lesser ability by the food industry to deliver potato chips. So, erasing the old supply curve here. All right. How about a third event? Our third event here will be less income. What happens if income declines in the U.S.? Less income. Now, are potato chips a necessity? We're not talking about water or electricity. We're talking about potato chips. If income were to decline in the U.S., it's very plausible that families would reduce their usage of potato chips, or their demand for potato chips would fall. So we would have less demand. How do we show less demand? Well, if infinity is to this side and origins that way, less demand is depicted this way. So now we have an all-time low of 2 trucks per week going to a typical busy supermarket, and now we could have our potato chips for $3 a bag. Again, because of less demand. Less demand means less quantity transacted, and people are willing to pay less for it. What would the potato chip industry hope for? The potato chip industry would hope that less income would manifest itself in other ways, that families maybe would reduce or cut back their usage of other products, but would keep on buying potato chips. But plausibly, things like potato chips and other treats, non-staple foods would certainly be reduced if less income happens. Okay, and now before we move on, we see the demand curve shifting down. Our old equilibrium was right here. Potato chips were costing $5 a bag, and there was 4 trucks going to a typical busy supermarket. Now, if I draw that equilibrium again, what happens if we are stubborn on those 2 points? What happens if we're not willing to deviate from those 2 points? So we say 4 trucks of potato chips per week and $5 per bag. If demand were to decline, and it's shown this way, and we weren't willing to budge on the $5 price, then instead of having 2 trucks, the decline would be much more drastic, say down to 1. If the government mandated that the price of potato chips stay at $5, maybe because it's an oily food, the drop in quantity would be much more dramatic. Conversely, if we lived in a centralized economy or government-run economy where the government says, well, we're still going to send 4 deliveries of potato chips to each major supermarket each week, and we weren't willing to budge on the quantity issue, as demand comes down, we would have the price dropping much, much lower. We would have the price dropping much, much lower, maybe down to $2.50 here. But the beauty of equilibrium, equilibrium results in a negotiation between these two parameters. What we have is we'll have price reducing a bit and quantity reducing a bit. And that's the beauty of the marketplace. The impact of this event, of less income, is distributed in as many ways possible to distribute or lessen its impact. Okay, so here's our final scenario. So if we go back to, I think it was 4 trucks and $3 a bag. My last event here will be the China potato. What happens if we start importing potatoes from China? What will that do? Well, everyone knows that when the Chinese enter a market, they make a massive impact. So if that were to happen, we would have more supply. Now, what's difficult about drawing more supply is students will say, well, supply is going up. It's going up, so to speak. But if we show this supply curve going up, what we're saying is there's less product available at a higher price, and that's not what we mean to say. If there's more supply, you can expect more inventory, more merchandise, and if it's more available, a lesser price to happen. So now we have a choke price on supply that's pretty darn close to zero. We have supply prime right there, and now we are back to 5 trucks per week and potato chips costing $2 a bag. In terms of demand, what do we have for demand? We have the same demand. Now, I start my students with examples that move either the supply curve or the demand curve. I don't move both at the same time. We have to learn to walk before we can run. Other teachers might move both curves at the same time, and perhaps that comes later. Anticipation of future price would move both the supply curve and the demand curve at the same time. But I like to start just by moving one curve. So if one curve moves, be it supply or demand, for the other curve, it's just going to be a mere quantity change. And what we see is as either demand or supply moves, the impact is shared by both a price and quantity adjustment. And hopefully you can draw markets now for your teacher on your homework and your test with greater ease. Thanks for watching.